That's a good point. So you all hear what he's saying. He's saying that if we're not careful, we will judge people according to a false standard. I think the wise thing is to actually discern where a person is and encourage them to where they are to make the next step, rather than to compare that with someone else over here. Because you're quite right. For this guy over here, that would appear lazy. But for this person where he is, that's where he needs to be, and he needs to take that step. Once again, I think the error is comparison. And so I think we need to authenticate a person and realize that in our journeys, it's relatively different. Last thought, and then we'll close. And it's this. And I love this story. Years ago, when a friend of mine came to faith in another state, 30 years ago now, this fellow was prone to swear when he prayed, rather. He was a brand new believer, and he had a real problem with language. And as a brand new believer, he'd even throw in curse words and swear words, but he meant them well. You know, this stuff is so blankety blank real and all that sort of a thing. And you know, from that standpoint, the guy would seem to be really a spiritual pygmy. And another person further down the road would say, "Man, this guy is not where he needs to be." But suppose this guy is where he needs to be relative to where he is, and here's another person who has all the lingo. He has all the Christianese, and he uses all the right language. But the guy is actually in a compromised position where he has done something and he needs to acknowledge that to somebody, and he refuses to do so. He resists the prodding of the Spirit of God, but he sure sounds eloquent in his prayers. Guess what just happened? One person gives the appearance of disobedience when actually he's being obedient. The other person gives the appearance of obedience when he's actually being disobedient. External perspectives really will be systematically misleading. So God judges the heart, and I think that's what relates to this. Is He knows where we are and where we need to be. Now, my friend needed to move on from that, and he did. But at the same time, you've got to be careful that you do not compare him with where he was and where he needs to be. Frankly, there are a lot of non-believers who are nicer folks than believers. In fact, if you go, it's a true statement, but stop and think about this. You go into suppose you go into a hospital, and there's people in an emergency room, and you compare their physical state with another group of people who happen to be randomly selected on the street. On average, those folks in the hospital will be worse off. Well, I didn't come to call the healthy, but I came to call the sick. Not many mighty, not many noble according to this world will be called. In other words, I came to call people who don't have really good, well-adjusted flesh. You see? So I would actually expect, all things being equal, that new believers there may be a greater nastiness. Here's the problem, though. Then we teach them to become even more nasty by making them legalistic so that they look like they were weaned on a dill pickle. It's a dangerous deal. So they lose their joy. So as I see it, then, we have to be very careful with all these comparisons.
Thank you for listening to This Talk, which is part of a series of messages by Dr. Ken Boa. To order additional talks on CD or MP3, or to learn about any of Dr. Boa's other Bible-based teachings, go to our web ministry at kenboa.org. That's kenboa.org. Or call 1-800-DRAW-NEAR. That's 1-800-372-9632.